Hello, my wonderful third graders. I hope you are having a fantastic day. We are still learning about European exploration of North America. This is lesson 3, and this is about an explorer named Juan Ponce de Leon. Can you guess what country he is from? From the sound of his name. Some vocabulary you will hear throughout the read aloud. Colonization is the process of taking control of an area and sending people to the newly controlled land to develop a settlement there. Expedition is a journey taken for a specific purpose, often by a large group of people. Intriguing is an adjective. It describes something. Jess couldn't stop reading the intriguing book until he finished it. Mistreatment means poor treatment that is harmful abuse. Rebellion is a noun. It's an open and often violent attempt by a group of people to overthrow a government or person in power. The Boston Tea Party, in which American colonists threw tea into Boston Harbor, was an act of rebellion against the King of England. Translator, a person who changes words from one language to another so that people who speak different languages can understand one another. In early 1493, Juan Ponce de Leon was uncertain about his future. Trained as a knight, he had spent a few years fighting against the Moors in southern Spain. The Moors crossed from Africa to Europe and took over most of the Iberian Peninsula, the land where Portugal and Spain are. This caused a great clash between Christianity and Islam. After Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain successfully drove the Moors out of Spain in 1492 with their army to preserve Christianity, Ponce de Leon was not sure what he should do next. So the Moors were Muslim who came to Spain from Morocco and other parts of North America. Muslims practice the religion of Islam and believe in one God named Allah. That all changed in the spring of 1493 when Christopher Columbus returned to Europe after his first transatlantic voyage. Word spread across Spain that Columbus had discovered new islands, possibly islands in Asia, and that these islands were filled with gold and spices. As you have heard, Columbus wanted to claim more territories in honor of Spain, so he organized another expedition to the New World. Thousands of men had come from all over Spain to sign up for Columbus's second voyage, and Juan Ponce de Leon was one of them. Ponce de Leon set sail with Columbus in September of 1493. He was with Columbus when the explorer returned to the fort on Hispaniola and found that it had been destroyed. Ponce de Leon participated in the conquest of Hispaniola and eventually settled on the island. So you can see Hispaniola down here next to Puerto Rico. In 1504, there was a rebellion on the eastern side of Hispaniola. The Taino, angered by the years of mistreatment by the Spaniards, rose up and fought for their freedom. Ponce de Leon played an important part in stopping the rebellion and, as a reward, was given a piece of land on Hispaniola, appointed the governor of the island, and assigned a number of slave laborers to help him cultivate a plantation. Sweet potatoes and a New World crop called cassava grew on the plantation. The pigs, cows, and horses were raised there as well. Ponce de Leon married a Spanish woman and brought her to live with him in Hispaniola. Here's a picture of what cassava is. By 1506, Ponce de Leon had established himself as a notable person on the island of Hispaniola. He might have stayed there for the rest of his life, enjoying the life of a wealthy plantation owner, but he had an adventurous streak. Have you ever been told you have an adventurous streak? About this time, Ponce de Leon began to hear stories about another island east of Hispaniola, an island that we now call Puerto Rico. He had heard intriguing stories about gold on the island, and he decided to explore it. Ponce de Leon led an expedition to Puerto Rico in 1506. He brought with him a cousin who had learned the native language and could serve as a translator. What would a translator be expected to do? They would translate or change words from one language to another so that the natives and the Spaniards could understand one another. Ponce de Leon met with the natives of the island and made a treaty with one of their chiefs that allowed him and other Spaniards to hike across the island. To their great delight, they found several large nuggets of gold in the rivers and streams. They also found an excellent, well-sheltered harbor, which is now known as San Juan Bay. Ponce de Leon went back to Puerto Rico a second time in 1508. Once again, he struck a deal with one of the native tribal leaders who supplied him with workers. These men built a settlement near San Juan Bay and cleared land for a plantation, while the Spaniards searched for gold. In 1509, Ponce de Leon was made governor of Puerto Rico. He encouraged Spanish settlement on the island in the search for more gold. In 1511, the Taino people of Puerto Rico began another rebellion. Ponce de Leon and the Spanish crushed the rebellion using swords, guns, horses, and attack dogs. Juan Ponce de Leon seemed poised for success in Puerto Rico for many years to come, but political problems arose. Diego Columbus, the son of Christopher Columbus, had gotten himself appointed viceroy in charge of Hispaniola. He didn't like Juan Ponce de Leon, so Columbus had him removed from office. The viceroy was the ruling representative of the King and Queen of Spain. Can you tell me what a governor is? Somebody who is in charge of like a region or a state. Ponce de Leon decided to explore new lands that would lie outside of the territory governed by his enemy, Diego Columbus. In 1512, Ponce de Leon received King Ferdinand's permission to look for a place the native people called Bimini. What do you think Juan Ponce de Leon was hoping to find in Bimini? If you thought he was looking for gold, that's a good idea. It shows that you've been listening closely. The Spanish were usually looking for gold on their explorations, and Juan Ponce de Leon was no exception. The Bimini are islands that form the western islands of the Bahamas. Look how beautiful that place is. It's a treasure in itself. Why would you need gold? Just build a little hut there. You can drink coconut water and just lay out on the beach in this beautiful Bahamas. However, tradition has it that Ponce de Leon may have been looking for something else as well. Some historians wrote stories after Ponce de Leon's death, saying that Ponce de Leon was searching for a magical fountain called the Fountain of Youth on the island of Bimini. According to legend, an old man who bathed in the water of this fountain would regain his youth. Some historians say that this story may have intrigued Ponce de Leon and that he set out to find the Fountain of Youth. In March of 1513, Juan Ponce de Leon set sail for Puerto Rico. On April 3rd, he and his crew sighted land. Ponce de Leon thought it was an island, but in fact, it was a peninsula. A piece of land that sticks out into the ocean and is surrounded by ocean on three sides. Can you make a prediction of what this peninsula is? What peninsula juts out into that area? Juan Ponce de Leon and his men went ashore and claimed the land in the name of King Ferdinand. It was the spring season, which the Spanish call Pascua Florida, or the season of flowers. The land itself was full of flowers, so Ponce de Leon named this land La Florida, or the flowery place. That name stuck, and to this day the land is called Florida. Florida, right? Have you ever been to Florida? Only a few documents from this voyage have survived, so historians are not sure about all of the details of his travels. Ponce de Leon sailed north along the east coast of Florida, and after some time he turned south. About halfway down the eastern coast of Florida, Ponce de Leon and his captains made an interesting discovery. They discovered that even though the wind was blowing briskly and should have been pushing their ships southward, the ships were actually moving north. Can any of you guess why the ships were moving backward even though the wind was pushing them forward? Look at the map to help you. Ponce de Leon and his men were sailing against a strong ocean current. In fact, they had discovered one of the strongest and most important currents in the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is like a river within the Atlantic Ocean. It is a current of warm water that flows out of the Gulf of Mexico around Florida, along the southeastern coast of the United States, and then northeast all the way to northern Europe. Later explorers learned that a good way to get back to Europe quickly was to sail into the Gulf Stream and then ride the current back to Europe. That's pretty cool. So here's an image of the Gulf Stream that goes all the way back to Europe. Ponce de Leon and his men found that they could avoid the Gulf Stream by staying very close to shore. A few days after they discovered the Gulf Stream, Ponce de Leon and his men tried to go ashore on the peninsula, but they were attacked by native people and driven back to their ships. Ponce de Leon decided to continue exploring the Florida coastline. He sailed south and rounded the tip of Florida. He still thought he had discovered an island, and he was trying to sail around it. He sailed along the string of islands known today as the Florida Keys into the Gulf of Mexico. Then he turned north and explored the western coast of Florida. He anchored for a while along the coast, probably around the area now known as Charlotte Harbor, but Ponce de Leon and his men were attacked several times, so they didn't stay too long. Eventually, Ponce de Leon decided to return to Puerto Rico and report on the lands he had discovered. On the way back, he and his men visited islands off the coast of Florida that were home to thousands of sea turtles. Ponce de Leon named these islands Tortugas, the Spanish word for turtles. Now you know a new Spanish word, Tortugas. Ponce de Leon went back to Spain to tell the king about his discoveries. He was not able to return to Florida for several years. In 1521, he launched a second expedition focused on colonization. Ponce de Leon wanted to establish a Spanish colony in Florida. He loaded his ships with more than 200 men, including farmers and priests. He also brought horses, sheep, pigs, and goats. Priests are leaders in a Christian church. Priests started accompanying explorers on their expeditions to spread Christian beliefs to native peoples in the Americas. You'll hear more about this aspect of European exploration throughout the domain. Ponce de Leon and his men landed somewhere along the southwestern coast of Florida. We don't know where exactly. They began setting up a colony, but after a few weeks, they were driven away by the Calusa Indians, Native Americans of the region. Ponce de Leon was wounded in an attack when an arrow struck him in the thigh. The Spaniards gave up on their Florida settlement and retreated to Cuba. While in Cuba, Ponce de Leon's wound became infected. He died in July of 1521. Some years later, his remains were transferred to San Juan, Puerto Rico, the city he had founded many years earlier. On which of Columbus's expeditions did Ponce de Leon travel? The second voyage or expedition. How do you think Columbus may have influenced Ponce de Leon? Columbus inspired Ponce de Leon to explore and find the wealth Columbus had reported. Did Ponce de Leon stay on Hispaniola or did he explore nearby areas? He explored nearby areas. What led him to explore nearby areas? What was he looking for? What happened? He was interested in finding gold. With the help of a translator, he might have also heard an intriguing story about the Fountain of Youth, and he may have wanted to find that as well. What areas did he explore? Puerto Rico and the coast of Florida. What were some of Ponce de Leon's discoveries? Did he find the Fountain of Youth? He did not. But he did find the Gulf Stream, which was pretty cool. And he found Florida, the Florida Peninsula, right? Remember, it's a peninsula, it juts out into the ocean. What is the Gulf Stream? The Gulf Stream is like a river within the Atlantic Ocean. It is a current of warm water that flows out of the Gulf of Mexico around Florida, along the southeastern coast of the United States, and then northeast all the way to northern Europe. Did Ponce de Leon ever find the Fountain of Youth? No. Do you think the Fountain of Youth really exists? Why or why not do you think that? I'm interested to hear what you think. No, it doesn't really exist. However, there are many tourist areas throughout Florida and the Caribbean which claim to be the Fountain of Youth. Or maybe it does exist and no one's found it yet. Maybe you'll be an explorer and find it. You learned that Ponce de Leon was interested in colonization. What does that mean? He wanted to develop a settlement in the area and take control of the land and the people who lived there. Was this successful? Why or why not? It was not successful because as they were setting up their colony along the southwestern coast of Florida, they were attacked by the Calusa Indians, or Native Americans. And then what happened to Ponce de Leon in the end? He decided to give up his settlement and retreated to Cuba injured. His wound became infected and he died. Did Juan Ponce de Leon make his discovery of Florida in the Gulf Stream before or after Columbus made his discovery of the Caribbean islands? After, right? So we're going to add a picture of him to our timeline this afternoon. Why do you think Ponce de Leon continued with its expedition even after experiencing a lot of difficulty? What character traits do you think he had? Our word for the day is colonization. In the read aloud you heard, in 1521, Ponce de Leon launched a second expedition focused on colonization. Say the word colonization with me. Colonization is the process of taking control of an area and its people and sending people to the newly controlled land to develop a settlement there. England's colonization of North America resulted in the 13 colonies along the Atlantic coastline. Okay, so after this read aloud, you are filling in your journal entry for Juan Ponce de Leon. All right, don't forget that explorers wrote and sketched in journals. So you are exploring information about these explorers, and you are going to record them in your journal entry. That looks like this. Why did Ponce de Leon sail? What was he trying to do? For which country did Ponce de Leon sail? What country sent him? And then what areas did he explore? And describe what happened, the land, the people, and resources he found. All right. Good job, third graders. I hope you enjoyed learning about Ponce de Leon. And you should practice saying his name a few times because it's kind of fun to say.